I want to talk about ideology, as well as the phenomenological concept of mortality. Um, I have a lot of videos which discuss Werner Marx's um, his phenomenological ethics, basically, and how he discusses how we can comport towards each other and we can have interpersonal interaction based on our commonality and based on our mortality, basically. Um, Excuse me. Drink some whiskey here. It's kind of burning a little bit. Anyway, um, that concept will pretty much allow anybody who is a person, be able to attach to each other, uh, attach based on interpersonal relation, on the Martin Buber's I thou relation rather than the I it, which is what lots of us do. Lots of us look at the world based on the I it relation of Martin Buber. Martin Buber's book I and Thou is a great book to read. I think. Yeah, you should check that out. I think if you like any kind of phenomenology or existentialism, either way. But I want to talk about ideology. Ideology is a book by ideology is the way I would think about it. It has been a book by a guy named Rory Consis. He pretty much he's a professor at University of Nebraska at Omaha, and he was my professor for a couple years. And the book is called Blurred Visions, but it's kind of a book which discusses how to a way of how to, it kind of he talks about how ideology and what fuels it is by brute facts, facts that are generally, like if we have let's say we're talking about two races which are aggressive towards each other because they have different view. They have a view that this race does one thing to us, and such. That is probably true to an extent, and that's probably going to prevent any kind of interpersonal attachment between those people, and that will probably lead to some kind of aggression and violence in there. And that book is something that I should probably go into more detail into. But the way I think about ideology, I think about ideology mostly because, by the fact that it's between two groups of people, at least. It's one group has this view of the other, and what the other group has a view of the other as well, and they have views of each other, which prevents interpersonal attachment. Um, that is very evident in it has been and still is to an extent in Eastern Europe. That's just because they, like the country of Yugoslavia. They put lots of different races in one country, and that, caused a certain reaction. And that book, Blurred Visions by Rory Consis, has a lot to do with his, experience in Eastern Europe because of the ideological tension there, and between all the races, between Bosnia and Herzegovina, and all that whole area with various people, even Croatia and such. And I think ideology is in really any case, even if you boil that kind of ideology down to conservatism versus liberalism in American politics, if you just watch Fox News, if you have a Tea Party person who but will not really listen to anything a left-wing liberal has to say. I mean, I know some certain Tea Party people. If hopefully you know what the Tea Party is, they just will not talk to each other. They will not. They won't. They don't think of the other person's opinion as valid. They have biases. I think of ideology as pretty much just bias, just so stuck in their mindset that nothing can really break it down. I think that people form these barriers. Ideology is just something that fuels these barriers that we put up between each other. It's just that it's different ideas about people, about other kinds of people in the world that just puts up barriers between each other, and I think that the phenomenological concept of mortality can somewhat weaken that. It can somewhat, probably not all the way break it down. It maybe so. I don't know, but I think it has potential. The phenomenological concept of mortality has potential to weaken or even break down these barriers that we put up because of ideology. Because the concept of mortality, the phenomenological concept of mortality, pretty much says that we are all mortal, for one thing, and we are all vulnerable. Vulnerable to various bad things of the world. We're all vulnerable to those things. We are all susceptible towards certain anomalies and such, because we are we are vulnerable to not only physical but emotional hardships and sadnesses and all these things. We are all vulnerable to those, and thus we are mortal. We have mortality. We are mortality, and this is one thing that connects every single human being in the world. This is one characteristic that connects every single human being in the world. Others, different characteristics can connect smaller groups of being in the world, but the phenomenological concept of mortality can group everybody in the world together, in even so far that it is in a certain mode of attachment, to where we're attached to each other because we are all mortal. We are all the same in this very one aspect. And I think if we understand mortality when looking at others, we can understand that we put up walls based on we put up walls because of ideology, and we have ideology, because of certain culture and society and such. But we put up the walls because we are afraid of certain things happening to us. Because we actually put up walls between each other because we are afraid of things, because of the very fact of mortality. We are afraid of those things, so we, shield others off. It's really is what we do. I mean, and the reason I think that mortality can, somewhat weaken or break down ideological barriers is because if we can understand each other, that we put up barriers based on ideology because we are afraid of things happening to us because of our very, very mortality. I mean, if we can understand and we can have interpersonal attachment because we can understand why people put up ideological barriers between interpersonal interaction. We can understand that somebody who has a certain ideology puts up a wall because they are afraid of certain things happening to them because of their very mortality. And if we understand those things, if we understand the concept of mortality, then we can understand everything about people, and thus we can break down those barriers. We can at least weaken them, I think. So let me know your thoughts. I'm curious about this. So pretty much I think that this phenomenological concept of mortality can do a lot of good things for ideology and ideological barriers. And if we break down ideology or break down ideological barriers, then there's so much more that we can accomplish. We can, Derived Energy posted a video that said that if, well, it's basically said that the human species is fucked. That's pretty much what he said. But he said if we don't learn to do this and that, then the human species is fucked. Basically, the human species is fucked. And one thing he did say that if we don't learn to live in harmony with each other, the human species is fucked. And I think that's a big truth, because we don't know how to do that, for one thing, and we don't have the desire to either. And I think that's probably because we don't really understand things about ourselves. Turn off, camera.